What if the biggest sign of low intelligence has nothing to do with IQ? What if it's not about grades, education, or how many books someone has read? Because some of the smartest looking people make the worst decisions. And some of the quietest people see what everyone else misses. Psychologists have discovered that intelligence often reveals itself, not through what people know, but through how they think, how they react, and how they treat others. Today, we're uncovering 7 subtle behaviors that many people mistake for confidence, strength, or personality, when they may actually reflect poor judgment and weak thinking. Stay until the end, because the final sign is surprisingly common, and millions of people unknowingly display it every single day. We usually imagine intelligence as something visible, a high IQ, a college degree, an impressive vocabulary, someone who always seems to have the right answer. But real intelligence is rarely that obvious. It appears in everyday decisions, in emotional control, in curiosity, in the ability to change your mind when new evidence appears. Modern psychology suggests that intelligence isn't simply about storing information. It's about processing information wisely. And surprisingly, many behaviors that society rewards can actually reveal poor thinking habits instead. This doesn't mean someone is stupid. Human intelligence exists on a spectrum. Everyone has blind spots. Everyone has moments of irrational thinking. The purpose of this video isn't to judge people. It's to recognize behaviors that quietly prevent growth. Because once we recognize these habits, we can replace them. And that's where real intelligence begins. Let's start with the first sign. 1. They believe they're always right. One of the strongest indicators of poor thinking is absolute certainty. People with limited critical thinking rarely question themselves. Instead, they assume their opinions are facts. When evidence challenges their beliefs, they don't become curious. They become defensive. This happens because certainty feels comfortable. Doubt requires effort. Learning requires humility. But intelligent people understand something different. They know they can be wrong. In fact, the more someone learns, the more they realize how much they don't know. Psychologists call this the Dunning-Kruger effect. People with limited knowledge often overestimate their abilities, while highly skilled people tend to underestimate theirs. Why? Because experts understand complexity. Beginners usually don't. Confidence without understanding can be far more dangerous than uncertainty. The smartest people aren't those who always have answers. They're the ones willing to ask better questions. 2. They reject new ideas immediately. Have you ever met someone who dismisses every new idea before even hearing it? Their response is almost automatic. That's impossible. That won't work. People have always done it this way. This kind of thinking creates invisible walls because intelligence depends on flexibility. Our brains naturally prefer familiar ideas. Psychologists call this confirmation bias. We search for information that supports what we already believe, while ignoring evidence that challenges us. Everyone experiences this bias, but intelligent thinkers actively fight against it. They seek opposing viewpoints. They ask difficult questions. They challenge their own assumptions. Growth only happens when we're willing to consider that we might be mistaken. 3. They blame everyone else. Life is unpredictable. Bad things happen. Sometimes circumstances really are unfair. But there's a difference between acknowledging obstacles and refusing responsibility. People trapped in low-level thinking often make themselves the permanent victim. Every failure becomes someone else's fault. Every mistake has an excuse. Every setback becomes proof that the world is against them. This mindset feels protective, but it quietly destroys growth, because if every problem belongs to someone else, there's nothing left for you to improve. Psychologists refer to this as an external locus of control. People believe their lives are controlled entirely by outside forces. Highly intelligent individuals don't ignore unfairness. They simply ask one powerful question. What can I control right now? That single question changes everything. 4. They can't control their emotions. Being emotional doesn't mean someone lacks intelligence. Every human being experiences anger, fear, sadness, disappointment, and frustration. These emotions are part of being alive. You can't eliminate them, and you shouldn't try. The real difference isn't whether emotions appear. It's what happens after they do. Imagine two people receiving the exact same criticism. The first person immediately becomes defensive. They interrupt, raise their voice, blame everyone else, or fire back with insults before even understanding what was said. The second person feels the same emotional sting. Their heart races, their ego is challenged. But instead of reacting instantly, they pause, they take a breath, they listen, and only then they decide how to respond. Both people felt the same emotion, but only one allowed emotion to take control. This is what psychologists often refer to as emotional regulation. It isn't about suppressing your feelings, it's about managing them instead of letting them manage you. Unfortunately, many people mistake emotional reactions for strength. They believe yelling proves confidence. They think losing their temper shows power. They assume speaking the loudest means they've won. But in reality, an uncontrolled emotional reaction often reveals something very different. It shows that emotion has taken over reason. Think about the biggest mistakes people make. Sending an angry text they'll regret. Ending an important relationship during an argument. Quitting a job in frustration. Making impulsive purchases. Hurting someone with words that can never be taken back. Most of these decisions weren't made through careful thinking. They were made in emotional moments, when logic temporarily disappeared. Neuroscience helps explain why this happens. When emotions become overwhelming, the brain shifts into survival mode. The emotional centers become highly active, while the areas responsible for planning, reasoning, and self-control become less effective. This is why people often say things like, "I wasn't thinking," because in that moment, they truly weren't thinking clearly. Emotion had taken the driver's seat. Highly intelligent people experience this too. The difference is, they've learned not to make permanent decisions based on temporary emotions. They understand that every strong feeling has an expiration date. Anger fades. Fear settles. Disappointment softens. But the consequences of impulsive decisions can last for years. This is why emotionally intelligent people create space between feeling and action. Sometimes that space lasts 5 seconds. Sometimes 5 minutes. Sometimes an entire day. That small pause can completely change the outcome. Instead of reacting, they reflect. Instead of attacking, they ask questions. Instead of assuming, they seek understanding. And instead of trying to win every argument, they focus on solving the problem. Research has consistently linked emotional regulation with better leadership, stronger relationships, higher career success, and healthier mental well-being. Not because emotionally intelligent people never get upset, but because they don't become prisoners of every emotion they feel. They recognize that emotions are valuable signals, but poor decision makers. Here's something else that's easy to overlook. People who constantly lose control often believe they're expressing authenticity. They say, "This is just who I am," or "I tell it like it is." But honesty without self-control isn't wisdom. It's impulsiveness. Real strength isn't proving you can explode. Real strength is proving you don't have to. Sometimes walking away from an argument requires more courage than staying in it. Sometimes choosing not to respond takes more confidence than delivering the perfect comeback. And sometimes The smartest sentence is the one you never say. Because intelligence isn't measured only by how quickly your brain processes information. It's also measured by how well you manage yourself. When life becomes difficult, anyone can stay calm when everything is going their way. The true test of intelligence appears when you're misunderstood, criticized, or emotionally triggered. That's when character becomes visible, and often, the smartest response isn't louder, it isn't faster, it isn't harsher, it's silence, followed by thoughtful action. Like this video, subscribe, and tell me in the comments which sign shocked you the most. And don't forget to share it with someone who needs a mindset shift.